How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, happy to have you. I need to let you know now, it is looking very much based on the evidence that is coming that this was a trans-identified shooter intentionally targeting Christian kids. And there was a video manifesto online posted shortly before the shooting, and YouTube has now pulled that manifesto, but not before people saw it, have screen captures of it, and it is deeply dark and demented, demonic evil. The person barricaded children into the church and then using a handgun, rifle, and shotgun proceeded to shoot through the windows, killing 2 children. Others are in critical condition, 20 people wounded. And if it is the case that this manifesto is real and the person who did it put "Kill Trump" and "Where is your God now" on the gun, on the magazine, wrote "Where is your God now" and had a target practice shooting Jesus to practice. Lots of trans stickers with guns saying defend transgenderism and things like that. It's deeply, deeply depraved evil, and it will be memory hold very quickly if it is true, because we know that the American Press Corps has, because they are overwhelmed by a bunch of white woke liberals, refused to acknowledge transgenderism as a mental health issue and want to normalize it. And it's very wild that when we have these shootings of young men shooting, and it's very clearly mental health, they want to talk about gun control, and they can't bring themselves to talk about mental health issues then. And when it's a situation like this appears to be, like in the Covenant School, there have been a series of these trans-identified shooters targeting Christians. Can't have that mental health conversation either. God forbid we do that. What the media refuses to talk about, what the politicians refuse to talk about. We'll see if this is all the stuff is starting to surface online. Don't want to keep it from you. Do want you to know it's surfacing online. It's not confirmed yet. But boy, is it out there everywhere now. And when this happens, let's take Jacob Frey, who is the mayor of Minneapolis. Very emotionally yelling at the cameras a little while ago, he said, these kids were praying that you got to do more than thoughts and prayers. I don't want to attack the mayor of Minneapolis, whose city is going through a tragedy right now. Whether you think I should or not, I'm a Christian and believe in grace. And I think that sometimes when someone is emotional and going through tragedy, if your first reaction is to throw a punch back because you feel like that person has punched you when they are in an emotional whirlwind, I think your heart is in the wrong place. But what happens is a lot of people, particularly secularists, will say, if God is real, how could this happen? These kids were in a church. They were in church pews. The shooter barricaded the doors so they could not get out of the church and began firing on the students. "Where is your God now" was written on the magazine of the rifle. And people will say, where is God when this happens? While this was happening, you should know my daughter is on lockdown at her university, barricaded into a classroom with an active shooter alert on campus. It is apparently a false alarm. She's been texting us and is fine. So where is God? So, I've been in seminary. I've, on occasion, taken to the pulpit and preached on Sundays. And I get asked this question, where is God? Because my wife also has an incurable form of cancer that is at stage 4, lung cancer. And the same people who look at these school shootings and ask, where is God, ask me, if God's so good, why did he give your wife cancer? Many of the people who ask these questions, you do need to know, don't really care about the answer. They're hard-hearted and they're angry. They're emotionally traumatized by the news of the day, and they're lashing out at the people who believe in God, who find joy in the morning after the cruelty through the night and the tears of the night. My wife and I last Saturday had to go to a funeral for a friend of ours who's 50 years old, who leaves behind a husband and 2 kids. She died of brain cancer. When she was diagnosed with brain cancer, knowing the odds, her response was that it may be a surprise for her and her family, but it was not a surprise for God. He's in control. That's the proper worldview to have. For those who don't have the worldview, let me explain this one to you. God is not the product of evil. You know where evil comes from? Evil is actually the absence of God. It's one of my concerns about AI. There's a story in the stack of stuff today about the kid who the AI encouraged the kid to commit suicide. Evil is the absence of God. AI is programmed by a bunch of secular atheists. It does not have a soul. It tries to pretend that it does. And I think AI ultimately at the end of the day is evil, not in the sense of depraved monster, but just there's no God there. Evil is the absence of God. Evil at its darkest takes on the manifestation of the opposite of God, Satan himself. There are evil beings. They are people and creatures and those in the other realm, Scripture would say, who have no God, completely devoid of God. We came into the world, and by the way, I think Christians and Christianity is the only religion really and the only worldview that actually has the answer to this. We came into a world and we were given free will, and the first man and the first woman chose defiance of God. And their sin, we call it, that opposite of the will of God, that opposition to God, polluted the planet. In fact, it got so bad, it was all wiped out except for one man and his family, Noah and his family, and the whole world rebooted, but Noah and his family were still sinners. The sin was so bad it corrupted the soil. It corrupted everything. Sin gives us disease. Sin gives us cancers. Not that you got cancer because you're a sinner. It's that the world is so twisted and depraved and turned from God that it pollutes everything. It pollutes our bodies. It pollutes the air. It pollutes the water. It pollutes the soil. Sin does that. God wants a relationship with us. He had it in the Garden of Eden. We separated ourselves from God by taking the forbidden fruit, the knowledge of good and evil, making ourselves like God, created in his image, taking the forbidden fruit, having the knowledge of sin, continuing to choose to do sin, and he still wants a relationship with us. So what did he do? He came to earth in the form of a baby, born in a manger in a food trough in Bethlehem, lived a very perfect life, never once committed sin, and yet died a sinner's death. The world chose Barabbas instead of Christ, chose the sinner instead of the saint, crucified him, put a thorn of crowns on his head, declared him the king of the Jews, nailed him to a cross, and killed him. And had the story stopped there, well, we would all still be dead in our sins. Except 3 days later, Christians believe he rose again from the dead, conquering death, so that we will live this life and die and rise again just like him. The moral of the story being that God wants a relationship with us, so he came and lived a perfect life and still died a sinner's death, all the sins of the world piled on top of him. So in other words, you and I don't get an escape from the bad things of this world because God didn't get an escape for the bad things of this world, but he promised to make things new and right in eternity. That's why there is evil in the world. There are those devoid of God. There are those created in the image and likeness of God who turn their back on God. There are those who turn their back on God and they become the most hostile to him. They become more animal than made in the image of God. And they hate him, and they hate those who love him. And we saw this happen in Minneapolis today. Someone who hates the Lord and those who love him, inflicting violence. Why would God let that happen? I wish I had an easy answer for you. If I was in a cult, I would. I would have a neat, perfect apologetic for it. But I'm not in a cult. I'm a Christian. And bad things have always happened, and bad things always will happen because there's sin in the world, and bad things happen to God himself. And we should not think ourselves more godly than God and think that we should be able to escape the bad things of the world that he himself chose to allow to happen to him so that he could make all things new and right our relationship with him, and we can have a relationship with him. None of us get out of this alive. 11 of the 12 apostles were executed, some of them very cruelly. One of them betrayed him and hanged himself and died. A 13th was given a long life, John, the youngest of the apostles. I believe these things are true, and I believe they're the only way to explain what we are witnessing today. An evil where someone barricades children into a church. It's the only thing that explains. When someone asks me, if God really loved me, why does my wife have cancer? If God didn't love me, he wouldn't have lived a perfect life and died a sinner's death, tortured and crucified on a cross so that he could have a relationship with my wife and me. We're not going to get out of this world without bad things happening. In my family, we have the sword of Damocles that hangs over us. My wife goes for scans every quarter to see if the cancer has spread. She takes a pill every day that has kept the cancer at bay. It was supposed to keep her alive for 2 years. We had to contemplate my wife dying almost 9 years ago. Thankfully, she's still with us. We got our daughter through high school together. And we hope in 2 years we'll watch our son walk across the graduation stage while we're holding hands, watching him too. I don't know what tomorrow brings. I barely know what today brings half the time. But what I do know is that every 3 months we got to go check and see if this pill has stopped working. And if it does, my wife's life changes radically. Our life does. I don't blame God for that because I understand that bad things happen in the world. Lazarus died. He was Jesus' friend, and Jesus wept. And he was able to raise him from life, and that didn't make Lazarus immortal. He then died a natural death later. People have been dying before Christ. People were dying after Christ because Christ didn't give a respite from the world for any of us, nor did he take one. That's what I believe. It is incumbent on you to understand that is my answer. For if God loves you, if he's real, why do these bad things happen? Because we live in a sinful, fallen world, and he allowed them to happen to himself. And he will dry every eye, wipe away every tear, and make all things new, just not today. And in the meantime, we confront the evil of the world. And there is a role here for the churches. We're dealing with a spiritual crisis where the loud voices in the room on television and in culture insist to us it's not only not a spiritual crisis, it's not a mental problem, that it's somehow normal. It is not normal. It deviates from the ordered design of the world. And yet they intend for us to not only treat it normal, but intend to distract us from the problem. And that in and of itself is the evil acting out. That let's not pay attention to the problem of evil. Let's figure out a political solution to a spiritual problem. There are horrible spiritual problems plaguing this society, and not just this nation, but the entire world. And the media can't talk about them because they do not recognize them, because they themselves have distracted themselves by the things of the world and are hostile to the things of God. Like this person who barricaded these children into a church to shoot them. It is real evil. We are confronted by evil, and the language of the press and the politicians do not give us voice to address it. Only our faith does. And for those of you who have none, you will become the most bitter and angry and wondering why, and look at it all as an accident and look at it all as a tragedy. They'll mock those of us who believe in a higher power. And at the end of the day, will you yourselves try to find a political solution to what is ultimately a spiritual problem? We are not soul with body or body with soul. We are both made in the image of God. And those who are hostile to him lash out at those who love him. And that appears to be what happened in Minneapolis today. The solution is not to get mad at God, but to return to him and pray. I will not mock the mayor of Minneapolis and his emotion for attacking and criticizing people who just pray. People in grief who had no way to help, prayer is their way to help. And he right now is emotional and doesn't understand it. It's not his worldview, and I get it, but I'll show him grace. But for the rest of you, prayer works. And right now, that's about all we can do. And pray that people see the light and recognize the nature of evil, and that the problem we have right now is not a political problem. And all of you who wish to treat it as a political problem will continue to fall on politics without finding solution, because it's not a problem of politics. It's a problem of spirit. And we in this country have a broken spirit. And these things will keep happening. And those of us who are unaffected by them should pray and should seek the welfare of the communities in which we live, because there we will find our welfare, and see if we can commit ourselves to improving our communities and overwhelming evil with good where we can. We got a lot more headlines to carry out today as we keep an eye on this tragic situation up in Minneapolis as that story continues to develop, and we'll see how the media begins to handle the story. You should know that Jen Psaki, who used to work for Joe Biden, has already come out and told Donald Trump that clearly sending the National Guard to Washington, D.C. to spread mulch is not helping. What about the dead kids? Of course, the Democrats rushing to already somehow blame Donald Trump for this shooting in Minneapolis, which, if the facts as it appears to be are true, that's the best they're going to have, is trying to blame Donald Trump. Now, I got to tell you about Swiss America with the secret war on cash out there, where the government is trying to steer people into not using cash, but credit cards and debit cards, so they can see what you're purchasing and control your purchasing. Swiss America wants to help you hang on to your hard-earned assets. You can get their report, The Secret War on Cash, completely free by calling or texting 800-289-2646. That's 800-289-2646. The All-Out War on Cash, by the way, includes digital forms of currency. You, my friends, can get the report completely free just by mentioning my name. You call them, say Eric Erickson sent me, or just text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 800-289-2646. You can also go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric. That's SwissAmerica.com/ERICK, or call or text my name, Eric, to 800-289-2646. Let Swiss America take care of you. Get their report completely free. Message and data rates may apply. When we come back, the president wants to allow 600,000 Chinese communist students into the country because Howard Lutnik convinced him that we need to do this. Hello, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, we got to move on to other stuff. I mentioned to you guys yesterday that Howard Lutnik, the Commerce Secretary, is the fount of all bad ideas within this administration. Howard Lutnik is the guy who championed the tariffs along with Peter Navarro. Howard Lutnik is championing the takeover of Intel. Howard Lutnik is the man who now wants to take equity interest in every American defense contractor. He actually is pushing the Department of Defense to take an equity ownership interest in Lockheed Martin and other defense contractors, letting the government pick the winners and losers, which we all agreed was a bad thing. This will really be the government picking winners and losers. Howard Lutnik is also the man who told Donald Trump we need to allow 600,000 Chinese communist students into the United States of America. It's actually Lutnik's idea. And unfortunately, he's got the president of the United States bought in on the idea.
Look, we're getting along very well with China, and I'm getting along very well with President Xi. I think it's very insulting to say students can't come here. because they'll go out and they'll start building schools and they'll be able to survive it. But I like that their students come here. I like that other countries' students come here. And you know what would happen if they didn't? Our college system would go to hell very quickly. You'd have, and it wouldn't be the top colleges. It would be colleges that struggle on the bottom. And you take out 300,000 or 600,000 students out of the system. I like having, and I told this to President Xi, that we're honored to have their students here. Now, with that, we check and we're careful and we see who's there. And Marco wants that. We spoke. We're in the same position. But we have a tremendous college system, the best in the world. Nobody even close. That's why China sends them here. And you can call it an industry if you want, but you're talking about millions of people. And I'm honored to have the students from China come here, and we're just getting along very well with China. And
this is Lutnik's idea, and he sold the president on this idea. Lutnik was the first guy to do this, and the number Donald Trump cited is 600,000. That number comes from Howard Lutnik. And here's something I bet you don't know. Here's something I bet Lutnik never told President Trump. The 600,000 number that Lutnik has told Donald Trump we need to allow into the country is double or more the number that are coming right now. This is from Jim Garrity at National Review. If 600,000 Chinese students in American universities sounds like a lot to you, it's because it is. That would represent more than double the number of Chinese students currently in the United States. The pattern of Chinese foreign students reflects that of foreign students overall, 50,000 to 100,000 each year throughout the 90s and 2000s, tripling during Obama's years and remaining close to 400,000 per year from 2017 to 2020. Since COVID, the number has been around 300,000 per year. Marco Rubio said that under President Trump's leadership, the U.S. State Department would work with the Department of Homeland Security to aggressively revoke visas for Chinese students, including those with connections to the Chinese Communist Party or studying in critical fields. We will also revise visa criteria to enhance scrutiny of all future visa applicants from the People's Republic of China and Hong Kong. What's going on here? Howard Lutnik has convinced the president we need double the number of Chinese students in the United States. And why? What is the purported reason? To save college students. I think it's very insulting. This is the president. You just heard him say it, to say students can't come here because they'll go out and they'll start building schools and they'll be able to survive it. But I like that their students come here. I like that other country students come here. And you know what would happen if they didn't? Our college system would go to hell very quickly. You'd have, and it wouldn't be the top colleges, it would be colleges that struggle on the bottom. Why are we propping up American institutions with Chinese communist students? You do realize that for these students to come to the United States, they've got to have ties to the Chinese Communist Party. They don't let them out of the country unless they do. So we're educating the future of the Chinese Communist Party in our institutions because Howard Lutnik convinced the president that we need to. This is a horrible idea. Horrible. I don't mind students from anywhere in the United States or anywhere in the world coming to the United States to get an education. But what's happening with the Chinese students? You know, we had several Chinese students working in grad degrees who tried to smuggle pathogens into the United States, agricultural pathogens. That's happened in the last 6 months. We had a Chinese student in Los Angeles arrested for having a lab in a storage unit facility where they were working on pathogens and drugs. Remember that story? That's from the last year. They found like dangerous pathogens in this. It was a storage unit facility, like one of the air-conditioned storage unit facilities. I've got a small one where I keep stuff and it's air-conditioned. This is one of the bigger ones, and they raided it. They found this stuff, and it turned out it was a lab, and they were experimenting with pathogens and viruses in this thing inside Los Angeles. And there was a Chinese student involved. Why are we expanding, doubling the number into the country? Because Howard Lutnik said so. Howard Lutnik wants to take over Intel. Let me tell you what's going to happen here. Lutnik yesterday said this isn't socialism, this is state capitalism. That's what the Chinese call it. Is he in China's pocket? Here's what's going to happen, and it's very obvious. If you get on a line and you say, are these voting shares of stock in Intel that the government got, oftentimes you're going to find that no. Why? Because Howard Lutnik said so. But if you actually go to Intel, what Intel is going to tell you is that, yes, they are voting shares. They're common stock. There's two classes of stock. There's common stock and there's preferred stock. Preferred stock gets preferential treatment if the company goes under. Common stock gets to vote. If you have common stock in a company, I got common stock in multiple companies, including Apple, I get a shareholder report and I get to vote to renew the board of directors, to add initiatives to the company. I get to show up at the annual shareholder meeting and ask questions of Tim Cook. I get to do all that stuff because I own common stock. The government is getting common stock. Howard Lutnik saying they're unvoting shares just means Howard Lutnik believes they're not going to vote the shares. But they can't stop Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris or Pete Buttigieg from voting the shares if they become president. There's no control to stop the next administration from voting the shares of stock. We are a decade away from a president of the United States who is a Democrat buying shares in Remington and SIG and Ruger and Smith & Wesson, you name them. Look, it's national security. Guns and ammo are national security. If we're buying stock in Intel or trading money for stock in Intel because it's a national security issue, what's to stop the Democrats from doing the same thing with gun and ammo manufacturers? We got an ammunition crisis in this country. We have an ammunition shortage. Donald Trump says we have an ammunition shortage. You know what would help the ammunition shortage? If the government gave an ammo maker a massive pile of cash to build new factories in exchange for stock in the company that the government then uses to restrict the sale of ammo to civilians, saying, oh, no, sorry, you can't buy this if you're a civilian. And you want a government contract? Well, you got to sell shares to the government. That's what Howard Lutnik wants. Backdoor gun control. We're not violating the Second Amendment. The government has passed no law restricting ammunition or guns. It's the gun manufacturers and the ammunition manufacturers have done it themselves because the government owned stock in the company and bullied them. We got rid of ESG and DEI for the most part in major companies. Wait until the government, using shares of stock, brings it back with BlackRock and Vanguard leading the way. President Buttigieg wants a lot of DEI. President Newsom wants ESG. Kamala Harris wants restrictions on guns and ammo. You can see where this stuff heads. And along the way, Howard Lutnik has convinced the president we need 600,000 Chinese communist students in our country to keep our colleges alive. Y'all, colleges, bastions of progressivism. Howard Lutnik has somehow convinced the president of the United States we need to prop up American colleges and universities. They can't survive on their own, so we need to subsidize them with Chinese communist students. By the way, you know what's actually happening? For every Chinese communist student who comes in and takes a seat in one of these colleges, it's an American kid who's not going. Think of all the American kids who are denied access to college every year, or they can't afford it. The government could be helping them go to college instead. But what are we doing? We're opening the door to Chinese students because Howard Lutnik said so. So the government buys shares of Intel and other defense contractors. They start owning the guns and ammo companies. They start restricting the sales to you and me. Lutnik's a liberal, by the way. He was a Democrat for years. He doesn't care. He's a gun control advocate. Lutnik for years supported gun control. Here's a backdoor way to get it. And the government picks the winners and losers. Listen, the government that screwed up COVID isn't capable of picking winners and losers well. The technocrats who screwed up education, screwed up healthcare, now they're going to screw up the private sector by having the government pick the winners and losers. The government is not good at picking the winners and losers. The winners and losers excel through arm's length transactions where the public itself, through the private sector, picks which companies are good and which companies are bad. They make bad decisions. Intel is getting subsidized by the government because Intel made a bunch of bad decisions, misread the future, mischarted the direction of its factories and its microchips, and now is being bailed out by Uncle Sam because Howard Lutnik thinks the government should buy microchips from the losing company. Intel is surviving, subsidized by you and me. We're not allowing the bad companies to go out of business. We're subsidizing them, zombie companies, keeping them alive because Howard Lutnik says so. The president should stop taking advice from Lutnik. It's not good advice. It's actually very bad advice. Letting in these communist students, taking over these companies. The tariffs themselves are starting to eat into the economy. There's a growing body of data on a daily basis that your prices are starting to go up. The genius of tariffs, however, is so many Trump supporters decided they would support it because the president said it was a good idea. You've actually got the working class now sending their taxpayer dollars to Washington to fund the national debt through tariffs. And people cheering it on. Something's got to happen to Howard Lutnik. This guy is a menace in the administration. And when we are subsidizing colleges and universities in the United States by sending 600,000 Chinese communists to those colleges and universities, we have a problem with priorities in this country. Every one of those seats, if made available, could go to an American kid. But Lutnik is prioritizing the Chinese communists and somehow convinced Donald Trump there needs to be a great rethink on this issue. Greetings, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425 should you wish to be on the program. Just to give you a little bit of an update here on my kid, she has been barricaded in a classroom. They use the bookshelves to barricade themselves in a classroom at her university while the news was breaking in Minnesota. Active shooter alert on her college campus. It appears to be a false alarm. There's been another alert as well. This has happened around the country all week long as schools have started back in Pennsylvania, in South Carolina, in Arkansas, in Georgia, multiple other places. All false alarms. And then this awful tragedy today at the school in Minnesota where the details continue to trickle out that we got problems as this story develops in Minnesota. We'll see if the mainstream media is willing to grapple with the implications of the story. Let's go to the phones. Jeff, you're going to be up next. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Eric. Can you hear me okay?
Hi there. Yep. How are you?
Oh, hi. Regular caller. I'm doing really good. I am about to make your day. Actually, I'm about to make your month. No, it's a good thing. First off, prayers to the families of the shooting victims this morning. And my heart is just bleeding as a result of that. But we will move on. The first point I wanted to make is to all the spears that are ready to be launched out there at you today over any of the issues with Trump. I'm sorry. I was one of those spear holders ready to go. Anything anti-Trump, I'm sorry. I am the number one fan. However, for the first couple of points I want to make, then I'll hang up and let you discuss them. The balancing the rights of the voices is one of the main things I wanted to make sure that we don't have a problem with. I'm seeing a lot of the same disturbing signs that you have seen and talked about over the last couple of months, and there's only three of them, and I'll let you go. First off, tariffs. I agree with you now 100%. I think they're touting upwards of $500 billion in tariff money that's already come in and going to give a tariff check back to everyone. But I'm seeing it real time, even at the grocery stores. That $19, $18 bag of coffee is now $22. And some things, my point is, some things are not be able to be repatriated back to the U.S. I agree with you now 100%. Should be targeted tariffs to the industries and the things that are a national security interest. But lastly, the 600,000 students that you've been talking about today, my head almost popped when I heard that. And I think Lori Ingram last night was just drilling the representative about that. I'm just trying to figure out why, because there has to be more things going on than just wanting to be liked by Xi, and it's because they're all CCP inputs eventually back to China. The motivating factor has to be something more than just that, because I like Xi likes me. But anyway, I'll hang up, let you go.
Well, listen, I appreciate it. Jeff, thank you very much. And let me, I got to say this, and this is very important. This is Lutnik. It's not the president. And I fault the president for going along with Lutnik. But I mean, Lutnik told the president we got 600,000 Chinese students here. And the president said, well, we should let them. And it's like, all right, 600,000, and didn't tell the president. Actually, we have 300,000 Chinese students here. It is blowing my mind that we're in this situation with Lutnik misleading the president, and that's where we are. Now, look, I got to tell you, I don't want to mislead you. I want to tell you about Vision Computers, because some of you, let me just focus on managed IT for a minute. Let's say you're a small business. You can't afford an in-house IT guy. You've contracted with a company where if you have a computer problem, you have to email them a ticket, or you get on an AI chat. With Vision Computers, if you call them at 404-COMPUTE today, you're going to get somebody to answer the phone. And their managed IT is different. There's no email ticketing system. There's a phone number you call, and you actually will get someone on the phone in 15 seconds or less. And they will help you with your computer. Not only will they help you with your computer, but they can actually navigate you, and they can remote into your computer, and they can fix your computer. And they can probably save you money. And here's the thing. You're thinking savings on how much does managed IT cost? Well, it's $199 a year per computer, but also they can keep you online. They can get you back up and running faster because you're talking to someone. You're not doing an email ticket trade. If you need managed IT, they can save you money and they can minimize your downtime. So call them at 404-COMPUTE. Tell them Eric sent you. They might be able to help you. If you're a sole enterprise person sitting in a coffee shop working, you need computer help. Vision Computer, 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com. 404-COMPUTE or visioncomputers.com. Let Vision help you.